So what can be done for emission reduction companies in Nigeria to be able to sell to global markets? And I'll direct it first to Deborah, and then throw it to everyone.
Okay. Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Okay. So there was a question that was earlier asked, and I think this kind of perfectly ties into it, because for you to be able to sell to global companies, for companies to be able to sell to global companies, you have to, before you are verified, you have to have identified the methodology or the framework, typically clean development mechanisms. I think this is one of the most approved methodology. I think it was aggrandized by the United Nations. So you find that voluntary markets, companies such as Vera use CDM a lot to, buttress, basically to, verify carbon credits, right? And again, it doesn't exactly have to be emission reduction companies. The CDM accommodates more than emission reduction. There's emission avoidance. There's so different sectors can participate. Aside for forestry and land use, you have waste management, you have clean cooking, like Monica mentioned earlier. You have clean energy, solar, right? Decentralized solar and all of that, right? So it's not just forestry that can be monetized.
Oh, is it just me? I stopped hearing Deborah.
Carbon markets they want to sell to, right? Voluntary markets are, less complicated than the mandatory markets, which are typically basically like some sort of policy and regulatory requirements, right? For either companies or entities.
Oh, okay. I thought it was my network, but looks like. Hi, Deborah. Okay, so I think she's having network issues. So I'll just proceed to the next question, and if she comes on, she can continue from where.
Yeah, can you hear me?
Okay, yes, we can. Yes.
Okay. So as I was saying, voluntary carbon markets, I think is really ideal for companies within Nigeria looking to sell to global companies, because because it's from private individuals, private companies abroad, right? Or corporations that want to meet their corporate sustainability target, or transition to net zero. It's more accessible to engage those kind of companies, right? As long as whatever you're offering is of high integrity, you're accountable towards it. And I reckon that voluntary carbon markets moving forward, will play a crucial role in filling this finance gap we have, particularly with startups in the clean technology space, companies that are typically into ensuring sustainable development in different offerings. And right now, it's so much potential. And should we be able to harness this potential, it could help us deliver that equitable energy transition, where it's not just satisfying the first bottom line, but also like supporting livelihood, supporting lives, helping women and children who are kind of vulnerable, ensuring access to electricity in one of the most vulnerable and last mile areas. So companies need to repackage or think beyond just the avoidance of emissions already, but they should also consider like other ripple effect that their solutions can offer, right? Is it employment, the value of their credits basically transcending beyond emissions, and it being backed by impacts, like how many people are switching from small petrol generators to clean energy, how many people are practicing sustainable waste management, how many jobs are being created, what's the local content of skills or development being instituted within the companies to drive their bottom line, right? And with this in place, I believe that if the credit that is being sold will be of high integrity, and that can also help us stabilize the carbon price, right? In the voluntary market, put like a great some stability, and also help us kind of like raise and co-finance what Nigeria, I think Nigeria needs about $240 billion just for mitigation investment. So companies as stakeholders within Nigeria can also help the government to raise or co-finance this investments, and help us transition better. So from agriculture to land use to clean energy. Companies also need to be of integrity, because there's been a lot of backlash about carbon credits, why it will not work, and mostly stemming from not just perception, because people have quite little knowledge about it, but the fact that so many things have happened, right? And it's not exactly a perfect fixed system, right? And it's not something, carbon credit is not a mechanism that is supposed to be long term. It's supposed to help us hasten our transition, right? So whatever companies need to do from now on, when it comes to carbon credit, has to be of integrity. How are you generating? How are you retiring the carbon credits? Have you blocked every avenue for greenwashing to occur? I think Monica mentioned something about transparency, and there are several technologies that can be leveraged on, like blockchain, having to report real time undisputed carbon savings for verification. So like these are the things that companies can typically do, right? Reporting accurately, no double counting, so that the credits that we generate in Nigeria is, solid enough to be sold to global companies, and then we can get the returns to develop our country.
Wow, thank you so much, Deborah. That was so loaded, so loaded. Thank you. And that stems into my next question. I have another question two questions came up while you were speaking. I'm going to direct one at John. And before I direct that one to John, I'll just touch on this question, because during your conversation as well, you talked on the bodies that can help to ensure that things are done accordingly. So I'll just refer to Namibia. The government of Namibia, they committed to achieving net zero emissions by designing key blocks for the carbon market framework in partnership with UNDP. And so how can other African governments also create opportunities for their countries in the carbon market? So I get that lots of, as I mentioned, we have entrepreneurs on the call. We have people who have opportunities, founders who have opportunities to, advise government on what they need to do for the industry, because as we know, oftentimes that's what happens in our own environment, where we are the one that, preposition to the government on what would be beneficial for the ecosystem, just as the case of the Startup Act. So, as people who have interfaced at one point or the other with the global standards of the carbon market, so what can other African, and I'm saying Africa because we have people that are not Nigerian on the call as well. So what can other African governments, how can they create opportunities for their countries in the carbon market? Yeah, so I'll direct it to Rotimi. Yes.
Sorry, just repeat that last part of the question again.
Okay. How can based on what Namibia has done for their own country, how can other African governments also create opportunities for their countries in the carbon market?
Okay. For their countries.
Yes.
Well, I mean, we're in Nigeria, so let me concentrate on our people. You know, we have the climate change law, which I think came into effect in 2021. And then there's also the vision, which the vice president, you know, kind of came out with at the end of last year. And this is a vision until 2050. So, you know, the president actually signed this, the law into becoming a law. It looks like there's I think some unification that needs to be done between the law and the vision. I'm not as conversant with everything that's inside the law, but it does appear from just studying what international watch agencies in this regard are saying. It suggests that there's a gap between what is in law and what is actually in the vision. I think the vision perhaps is more bold, right? So is bolder than the law in itself. And I think there needs to be, first of all, alignment there completely. And then, of course, you need alignment across the agencies, right? So from Ministry of Environment to all the entities and agencies that are obviously producing these emissions. There needs to be alignment, and there needs to be proper penalties, obviously, if you're ever trying to create a market. Sorry, it seems Kunle or something is trying to say something. No, I'm seeing a Kunle yeah.
You can okay. Go ahead. I have more
okay, great. So yeah, there needs to be alignment, first of all, once again, vision and also the law. Then secondly, I mean, we need to be serious about, you know, creating a price for not doing the right thing, right? So, for example, in California, one of the oldest locations that have a cap and trade program, which is enforced by law. You have to cap your emissions a certain way, and then you have to trade. They create the credits. Those credits are finite, and so that creates a price. And you are allowed to then buy those things and incentivize people that are lowest. The marginal cost of avoiding the credits or offsetting it is cheaper for one entity than the other, and then others will go into the market. So you can think about a lot of the heavy emitting entities in Nigeria, from the oil and gas space especially to cement and so on and so forth. These guys have cash. In other markets, they go and they buy these things, you know, they comply with the law. So if your own law doesn't stop me from doing what I'm doing, and you're not enforcing it, then I'll continue to do what I'm doing. And you see all these images, obviously in Niger Delta and other places, where you just have very disgusting things that are going on, you know, gas flaring all over the place. Although I will commend Nigeria on the gas flaring laws and changes. That has forced people to work with entities like Carbon Limits, and they are now trying to tap into these schemes as something called carbon financing, i.e. a different methodology of layering low-cost capital, or basically free capital, if you will, for doing the work into financing a project. And so I think it's really just a matter of enforcement, tightening up the vision and the law alignment. And then, you know, look, we have the Nigerian Stock Exchange. Why don't we have an exchange that is being created in alignment through a private entity working with the public institutions to create a trading market, which, as you know, our people are very enterprising. If you give us, if you give us markets, we'll show up there and we'll do the thing. But of course, you need to have watchdogs, right? And there needs to be proper consequences, like all the way up to your EFCCs, because it will definitely create an avenue for people to create false projects. And that's where the utilization of a proper standard comes into play. One that doesn't damage the quality of Nigeria's carbon credit market, but one that actually makes us a destination for people that are looking to offset globally as a low emitting country, what do we have to lose, right? There's nothing to lose. The other thing I would say is that we don't have an inventory of this stuff. So how can you trade what you cannot track? Right? So one of the biggest problems that we have right now is, for example, all these petrol generators and diesel generators. Nigeria runs literally on petrol and diesel generators. Forget about anything else. You know, people talk about, oh, this guy has gas to power, some industrial power plant. It's not an industrialized country. So the real power demand in Nigeria comes from retail consumers. Your house, this person's house, the millions of us that have petrol generators, and the millions of SMEs and businesses, right? And this is an untracked source of emissions. So I always hear that our emissions are low, but do we really know what our emissions are? Our emissions are low because we're unindustrialized, right? That's the, you know, if you look at it from a global perspective, but if you start tracking, you know, 5 pounds of CO2 is contained in every liter of petrol/diesel that is burned using these. So if you now track that over millions of generators, you might get a different view of actually how much of an emitter Nigeria is. It's just that nobody can track it, and so therefore they say we're a low emitter. And you, when you step outside of your house, you can feel how bad our air quality is. Nobody needs to tell you that, right? So I think we have a very big problem of lack of transparency. And if you don't know, if you can't track this thing, then you cannot curb it. And so I think an official market being created is one of the strongest things that will incentivize natural participants that are driven by economics to find a way to solve our local problem and therefore help with the globe as well.
Thank you so much,